I know the exact weight of the silent shame you feel when your body stops responding in the bedroom. But the reason your performance is fading is not your age. It is a daily habit happening right by your sink. And throwing one specific item in the trash is the fastest mechanical fix you can make today. It is a terrible moment when you realize the predictability of your own body is gone. You are lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, pretending you are just exhausted. You pretend you have too much on your mind from work, the economy, the pressure of providing, when the truth is, your system simply stopped working the way you expect it to. That failure does something very quiet and very destructive to a man. It dismantles your pride from the inside out, piece by piece. I lived inside that quiet destruction for years. For most of my late 40s and straight through my 50s, I was a high-functioning sales executive. I spent my life in airport lounges, rental cars, and conference rooms. I was the kind of man who believed that if a physical problem appeared, you simply applied more force, more caffeine, or a faster shortcut to fix it. That is how you survive in corporate business, and I falsely assumed that was how you survived getting older. When my physical performance started to fade, I did not look at the underlying mechanics of my body. I panicked. I went looking for a quick exit to avoid facing the reality of my own decline. I did what millions of men do. I got the little blue pills. At first, it feels like you solved the problem. You take the pill, the blood flows, and you feel like you bought yourself another 10 years of youth. But it is a rented solution, and the interest rate is incredibly high. You start relying on it completely. You have to awkwardly time your evening around it. You deal with the flushed face, the dull headache, the rapid heartbeat, and the underlying anxiety of wondering if it is actually going to work this time. You are taking a highly stressed, exhausted engine that is running on dirty fuel, and you are chemically forcing it to run at maximum RPMs. It is not sustainable. It is a temporary patch on a failing pipe. My reliance on those pills did not save my marriage at the time. The physical distance in the bedroom was already there, but the emotional distance grew exponentially because I absolutely refused to have a real, honest conversation about what was actually failing. I was hiding behind a chemical shortcut instead of facing the fact that my infrastructure was collapsing. We eventually divorced. I do not blame her for leaving. I know exactly what I was avoiding, and it was impossible to live with. I had to hit a wall of absolute frustration to finally look under the hood of my own body. I realized I had to stop forcing the system and start understanding why the flow was blocked in the first place. If you are a man over 50, circulation is your entire life. Your energy, your cognitive sharpness, and your ability to perform rely entirely on blood traveling unimpeded through thousands of miles of microscopic vessels. But what controls that circulation? What tells the vessels to open up and let the blood flow? The electrical signals of your body, your hormones, specifically your testosterone. What I discovered changed everything, and it had nothing to do with my genetics or my exercise routine. It had to do with a mechanical sabotage I had been committing every single morning of my adult life without even knowing it. I'm talking about the cheap synthetic items sitting right on your bathroom counter. Think about how most of us have lived our lives. I spent decades waking up in a Marriott in Chicago or a Hilton in Dallas. I would walk into the bathroom, rip open whatever free bar of heavily perfumed soap was sitting on the counter, and scrub it into my skin. At home, I bought whatever blue or green body wash was on sale at the pharmacy. The ones with names like Arctic Rush or Sport Performance. I slapped on cheap shaving creams and synthetic colognes. I never read a single label because I assumed soap was just soap. What no one tells you is that you are daily covering your largest organ, your skin, in industrial chemicals that completely disrupt your engine's sensors. These cheap, mass-produced grooming products are packed with synthetic compounds, things like parabens, phthalates, and artificial fragrances. When you rub them into your skin under a hot shower, your pores open up and those chemicals go straight into your bloodstream. Once they are inside your system, they act exactly like counterfeit signals. In the mechanical world, if your car's computer relies on oxygen sensors to mix the fuel, and you spray those sensors with thick mud, the engine misfires. It gets confused. Your body's hormone receptors are those sensors. The synthetic chemicals in that cheap soap are the mud. These specific chemicals mimic estrogen. When they flood your system, your brain reads the counterfeit signal and assumes you have too much estrogen. So it does what it is programmed to do. It shuts down your natural testosterone production to try and balance the system. For years, I was walking around wondering why my engine was failing, why my blood flow was restricted, and why I had no drive, completely unaware that I was chemically castrating myself every morning before I even put on my suit. You can take all the blue pills you want, forcing blood downward, but if your main control board is being jammed by counterfeit estrogen signals, you are fighting a losing battle. The plumbing simply cannot work if the electrical signals are dead. The change happened when I realized I did not need a new medication. I needed to stop poisoning the well. I took a large black trash bag into my bathroom and I threw it all away. Every brightly colored plastic bottle of body wash, every cheap synthetic shaving cream, every aerosol deodorant. I cleared the counter entirely. It felt strange at first. I'm a guy from Texas living in Scottsdale. I'm not the demographic for reading the ingredients on a bar of soap, but I looked at it purely as mechanical maintenance. You do not pour a gallon of cheap solvent into the fuel tank of a high-performance vehicle and expect it to run smoothly. I replaced all of it with a single, massive block of natural soap made from tallow and basic oils. No synthetic fragrances, no unpronounceable chemical preservatives, just clean raw materials. I started using a natural shaving oil instead of the pressurized chemical foam. I stopped feeding my body counterfeit signals. The physical sensation of making this change was not something I felt in 24 hours. You do not undo 30 years of industrial chemical exposure over a single weekend. Your body has to slowly clear the mud off the sensors. But after about 6 weeks of doing this simple mechanical maintenance, a fundamental shift occurred. The heavy, lingering brain fog that used to hit me every afternoon started to lift. My recovery time after my light resistance work grew shorter. I felt a subtle but undeniable return of aggression. The good kind. The drive to actually get things done. And then, the morning response began to return. It was not forced by a pharmaceutical. It was not a rented temporary fix. It was the natural result of clearing the blockage. The counterfeit signals were gone. The brain was finally reading the system correctly again. The natural testosterone production booted back up, the blood vessels were allowed to dilate, and the flow returned because the infrastructure was finally operating on clean fuel. Confidence comes back when the body starts responding naturally again. I'm 63 now. When I married Alyssa, I brought a completely different version of myself to the relationship. Alyssa is a direct woman who values presence over performance. She expects me to be honest, and she expects me to show up. But the hard truth is, you cannot be fully present for a woman when you are quietly ashamed of your own failing mechanics. You pull away. I can show up for her honestly now because I stopped looking for shortcuts and started doing the actual maintenance. A lot of men are not broken. They are just poisoning their own systems and ignoring the wrong things. We wait entirely too long to face what has changed because we think a loss of vitality makes us less of a man. We accept it as a normal part of getting older. The truth is, ignoring the root cause is what diminishes you. Taking ownership of the mechanics of your own body, taking the time to read a label and stop rubbing industrial solvent into your skin is the most masculine thing you can do. I'm not telling you that throwing away your cheap body wash is a magic cure for everything that hurts. I still have mornings where my lower back reminds me exactly how old I am. I'm not invincible, but I am consistent. I wake up, I hydrate, I wash with clean materials, and I do not put anything on my skin that I would not trust inside my engine. I maintain the infrastructure. You have to stop jamming the signals if you want the flow to return. You're not the only man dealing with this quiet decline. You are just the only one who can decide to fix the inputs. Throw the garbage away, look at the mechanics. Simple as that.